reconvene the Parker Town Council meeting at 7:01 p.m. Council, please join me in honoring our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I always want to cross myself after I say the pledge, like I'm at church. All right. Special presentations. I do not believe that we have any special presentations tonight. No? Okay. Then we're going to go on to, let's see here, public comment. Council, you should have received, if there was any public comment, sent to you via email. For those of you watching at home on Zoom, if you ever have general public comment, that's public comment that does not pertain to one of the items on our agenda, you can email it to council via the link that is on our website, parkeronline.org, by 5 p.m. on the days of our council meetings. So let's go ahead and move on to reports, items, and comments from mayor and council. Oh, I didn't mention earlier, all council members are present, except for Councilwoman Cheryl Pogue, and Councilwoman Renee Williams is joining us via Zoom. So reports, items, and comments from mayor and council. Renee, we'll start with you since you're virtual.
So still working with the high needs work group with Douglas County regarding COVID. And we had our P3 liaison meeting last week, and that's about it. Everything's going as well as can be expected given these trying times. Hope everybody's taking care of themselves and their families and staying safe. That's all.
Thank you very much, Renee. Councilmember John Toborg. Oh my gosh, I do need more coffee.
Can we tag team it, Jeff?
John Dyack. Jeez, I know. Just shut off my microphone here at some point. John Dyack.
I can lean over and turn it off.
Thank you, Mayor. We had an engineering and public work liaison meeting. We reviewed the 2021 budget capital requests. This is sort of a very, very preliminary review of proposed projects that will go through a process. My favorite word.
Process. He's a pro.
As long as they have a spreadsheet.
So we can hopefully get to a consensus and talk about it in our budget review discussion in September 24th, 25th. I forget which one. I think it's 25th. We also talked about the snow operations preview. It's coming at us at a future study session. I was on a county COVID call. We looked at the numbers. Our numbers here in Douglas County are looking still fantastic compared to our other two cohorts within Tri-County. The two-week cumulative incident rate is 51.92 as of today. To advance to the next round, the Protect Your Neighbor round, we need to be below 25. So still some time to go. Positivity rate is 3.21, need to be below 5. That's good. ICU vacancy is 31.9. That is good. Testing, we need to continue testing. There will be a Parker event August 25th at the Pace Center from 9 a.m. to 1. Douglas County will allow free testing for up to 200 people. So hopefully people who are concerned or people who just want to get out and get tested, drop by the Pace Center August 25th at 9 to 1. Mask usage, we're at 96%. And the only other thing I have is E470. At an E470 meeting, we actually approved a remnant parcel policy. We still have a few pieces of real estate within E470 that just will not be used ever, so they are available if someone would like to entertain purchasing them. We also approved or directed staff to proceed with a hazmat designation. That goes to the Colorado State Patrol. And we had a financial dashboard review. COVID is still affecting E470, and as of right now, traffic is down 36%. Based on last year, that is a positive because our peak to trough worst week was down 74%. So things are coming back, but it's a slow but sure process. Thank you.
Debbie Lewis.
I don't have anything.
Mr. Jeff Toborg.
For the third time.
For the third time.
All right. I attended the Economic Development Liaison meeting last Monday with Councilman Rivero, and on the 12th, attended the Downtown Business Alliance as the liaison, and they've got a lot of great things coming up, so check their DBA. How would Chris do it? The Downtown Parker, whatever. I'm not cool enough to do that, but they've got a ton of stuff going on. They're also looking for ways to continue to expand business out into areas and give them more footprint during this time, so it was a good event.
Josh Rivero.
Nothing further.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda. This is our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine, will be enacted with one motion and one vote unless a council member asks to have something. Oh, wait, no, we're not. I just got the nod from our head financial guru in the town because I skipped right over the most exciting thing that we have to hear tonight. That is the presentation of our CAFR from Clinton Larson Allen LLP. For all of you non-accounting folks out there, the CAFR is the document. We're going to get a further explanation of exactly what it is, but it's the document that tells us about how awesome we are. So, Mary Lou.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So it's one of those documents, though, that if you're having a hard time going to sleep at night, pull it
Hey.
out, read away.
There you
You'll
go.
get through about 2 pages. So anyway, tonight we do have Kevin Kimball from Clifton Larson Allen, who is here with us virtually to talk about the audit. The audit and the CAFR were completed at the end of July. The CAFR was filed with the Department of Local Affairs, DOLA, and also with GFOA, so we met all of our legal requirements and deadlines. So we're happy about that and also happy about what Kevin has to report on.
Kevin, hit us with a CAFR.
All right, great. I'm not sure if you guys have an electronic copy, but as far as the organizer is concerned, I can definitely share our report so we can walk through it a little bit easier. Do I have that ability on my screen?
Whatever you feel good with, just give us the high-level overview.
You do have.
All right, let's see if I can pull this off here. All right, there we go. I think we're up and running. Great. So just a little bit of background. So the fiscal year 2019 audit, we always enjoy working closely with Mary Lou, Rhonda, and the rest of the individuals that we get to work with at the town of Parker. We really enjoy the work we get to do with them, and overall it's been a great process in the few years that I've had the opportunity to be involved with the audit with the town of Parker. So I'll go through 2 separate files. The first is the letter to governance, being council. And what this letter outlines is, some of the significant key changes or estimates that are within the CAFR, and then any unique changes in accounting policies. So the one main thing I'd like to highlight on this letter is on the first page, there's a paragraph, significant accounting policies. And anytime there's an adoption of a new standard, we're required to not only potentially disclose it in the CAFR itself, the financial statements, but also notify governance of the change and that the town adopted the change in accounting principle. And so being unique this year, thanks to COVID-19 and us having to do this all remotely, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board issued a statement, and it's statement number 95, and what it effectively does is it delays the implementation of all standards that were effective for fiscal year 19 and 20. So essentially all those upcoming standards were delayed. The town adopted that standard, which allowed them to delay implementation, and the Governmental Accounting Standards Board obviously, pushed that standard through just due to the impact of COVID-19 and state, local governmental entities working to obviously serve and help the public through that time outside of having to worry about complex accounting standards. So that was the only new change this year, and it had no impact to the financial statements. It's just something we want to make the town council aware of, that it was adopted this year, pushing back the implementation of others. Some of the other information that's in this letter, just significant accounting estimates, such as, depreciation methods used by the town for capital assets, obviously nothing outside the ordinary. We just highlight some of those key estimates. The net pension liabilities or assets involved with the defined benefit plan with the Fire Police Pension Association, among others. And so those are some of the key things that are outlined and highlighted in this letter. Other items that are alluded to, uncorrected misstatements or corrected misstatements. So throughout the audit process, there can come up audit adjustments where we say, hey, maybe this item should have been recorded in this period of that, and management will elect to make the adjustment, or in some instances, due to materiality and complexity, they elect to pass on the adjustment. And so as far as the fiscal year 19 audit was concerned, we only had one relatively minor adjustment, and it was just capturing a unique construction invoice that crossed over December and January. So it's just a percentage of an invoice, but management did elect to make that adjustment. And so that's attached. That adjustment is attached to this letter as a piece of the information that we provided to the town along with our reports. Other items that we disclosed to you guys in this letter are any issues we had with management, any disagreements that we had with management, and as always, happy to report there were none. Like I said, we really did enjoy going through, obviously it had to be remote this year, but working through the audit with the town, and it's always been a great relationship, and can report the same this year. So if there's not any questions regarding that letter, I can go ahead and get to the CAFR, that document that Mary Lou was alluding to before we started.
Any questions, guys? Does not appear so. Jump on in.
Awesome, thank you. So what I'll start off with in the CAFR, and so it's a very long document, number of actual physical pages, 160 pages, but I'll touch on some of the key information that I think adds value to the readers. And I'll obviously start here with the independent auditor's report. Happy to announce, like I have been able to for the past few years, that it's a clean opinion, highest level of assurance that we can provide in our reports. So big kudos to town council, finance, public works, all the departments that have a piece in creating the financial information and demographic information that populates this document. So it's always a great accomplishment to get a clean opinion. We were happy to work with the town to be able to issue our report, and they were very helpful. One of the next areas that I'll go to, and if you're watching closely, I'll try not to scroll too fast. The next area is management's discussion and analysis. And for those of you who don't enjoy reading CAFRs often, or they don't do it as much as I do, CAFR stands for Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And so it's, governmental accounting, there's a lot of funds, there's a ton of useful information, but really if you wanted to see a narrative picture on the town's financial statements this year as opposed to 2018, the management's discussion and analysis, and it's on page 31 of this report. It's a great place to start. It outlines some of the major changes for the town. A perfect example is bullet point 1, bullet point 2, where it outlines that overall net position of the town increased $23 million compared to 2018. And then within these comparisons, there's obviously analysis that says, here's the reason why it increased. And, a big piece of the town being home rule with a lot of retail. Parker's biggest revenue stream is sales tax, and there was a large sales tax increase in 2019 compared to 2018. And so that's a big driver behind the increase in net position. So town council members or, any members of the public who are looking to learn more about what's all within the CAFR, I think this creates a great picture and summary of the high-level financial activity in a comparison format year to year. Some of the other key things that happened within the town in fiscal year 2019 was a refunding of debt. And so a series 2019 bonds were issued to refund 2014 outstanding COP bonds. And so we'll get into a little bit more of that, and I'll show you how it flowed through. But that's one of the other, major items that's not necessarily routine. Obviously, the town has done it throughout their history, but that's one item that you'll see that's a little bit different on the statements as we go through them. So the MD&A goes from page 31 all the way down to page 43. It gives great narrative information about capital asset activity, certain balances within the general fund, or even the business type stormwater utility. So I encourage anybody who's looking for additional information or high level narratives about the activity to start here and review this file. The next page I will flip to, and I've got a mark, so I'm just going to go real quick instead of scrolling and giving everybody a headache, because we don't want that. This is the statement of net position. So government-wide, within governmental accounting, we have both modified accrual and full accrual. And so the business type activity and the government-wide statements are presented on the full accrual basis. And really the difference between full accrual and modified accrual is full accrual contains financial resources, so long-term debt, capital assets, and that's different from modified accrual, which really focuses on current financial resources. And that's where you see those budget to actual expenses. Having appropriations and using those appropriations for given expenditures within a 12-month current focus. And so the statement in that position here is presented on the government-wide, and the business type activities are shown separately. One of the key things to highlight here, and I'll zoom in just a little bit real quick, is we had a shift. And so the town of Parker does participate in the FPPA defined benefit plan. And so that plan historically has kind of flipped back and forth between a net pension asset and a net pension liability. And so in 2018, it was a net pension asset. And just because of the participation in the plan, the assets held by the plan, the number of individuals participating, and the contributions made by the town, what this amount reflects here, the net pension liability, is this is the town's proportionate share of the entire plan and all the employers that participate in it, and the effects of the participation of the plan and the contributions in the plan. That's why it flipped from an asset to a liability, and it has done so in the past. And there's a very, very lengthy footnote in the notes to the financial statements if you wanted to get into the numbers, the valuation methods, the tables for amortization, all those items. But that was one key piece here that we saw change on the statement in that position as well. One of the next sections I'll go through. So this is kind of like the income statement. It's called Statement of Activities for Government-Wide Presentation. Income statement, I think, is a really good way to think about it. And so once again, this is on the full accrual piece. And then one of the unique things about governmental accounting is now we get into our modified accrual statements, that current financial resources measurement focus. And so here we have all of our major funds: general fund, parks and recreation, cultural, recreation, public improvements, excise tax, and all of the governmental funds are presented here in what are called the basic statements, included with the government-wide statements as well as the basic fund statements. And so that's what's shown here. And then the next piece that you'll see in a CAFR, and this is a reconciliation between what is shown on the modified accrual basis, all the individual fund accounting that doesn't include long-term debt, capital assets, other financial resources economic resources as opposed to current resources. And this is the reconciliation. Well, what's the difference between the two? How can I mirror these statements up? And so there's two reconciliation statements. The first one, I call it the balance sheet reconciliation. It takes the governmental fund balance sheet and it reconciles it all the way up to the government-wide statement in that position. So in here, you can see some of those items that I alluded to. Capital assets is included, the net pension liability. The balance of long-term debt is another piece that's in here. And so obviously those are the financial balances that aren't shown on the modified accrual or in the fund statements. It's in this reconciliation so that the reader can understand how you go from modified accrual, that budget to actual focus, to the whole government-wide on the full accrual basis. The next piece is the funds and the income statement for the governmental funds. Shows each major fund and then the other non-major funds. And then once again, we do have a reconciliation statement here. I call it the income statement reconciliation. And once again, it goes from modified accrual to full accrual on that statement of activities. And this is a map of some of the information that's included in the government-wide presentation as opposed to just the fund statement presentation. All right, so I'll flip through. Here are some budget to actual schedules specifically for the general fund, as well as other major funds. And these are really useful to see, original budget adjustments, as well as where the town fell against actual. So actual versus final budget, all of that's disclosed in these budget to actual statements. The next key piece, and forgive me for the scrolling if you're trying to pay too much attention, the notes to the financial statements. And so I know we flipped through a ton of statements, a ton of key financial information, and the notes to the financial statements are detailed disclosures about key financial position of the town. So it could be cash, investments, capital assets, that net pension asset or liability that we alluded to earlier. All of that is disclosed in great detail within the notes. And so if you see a balance, it most likely will be disclosed in the footnotes, and there's a lot of good schedules as well as narrative explanations to give more of a disclosure understanding of those balances. One of the key pieces, I promise I won't go through all the footnotes, but one of the key pieces I did want to look at is the long-term debt footnote, just to kind of show that change driven by that debt refunding that took place in 2019. Sorry, 1 second. Here we go. So it's in a roll forward presentation. And so we can see at the end of the year fiscal 18, this was the town's total outstanding debt, including discounts and premiums. And you'll see here that that what the town did with the 2019 series is refunded this series 2009, so we can see the addition of the series 2019, that 25.215 million, as well as the premium that was attached to it. Those proceeds, as well as some other funds held by the town, were used to refund the outstanding balance of that old series 2009. And obviously, the reason behind that is an economic advantage with certain interest rates and total debt service payments over the life of the new refunding bond versus the old bond. And so you can see that presentation here. And then if you wanted to read in more depth about that series 2019 refunding, I'm sure the town council is obviously, involved in looking into all that, but it is disclosed on page, 85. So a little bit further down within this footnote, if you wanted to get into a little bit more detail about that refunding. Some of the last pieces that I'll go to highlight, just one unique change for the town during this year. And I will take the shortcut method instead of scrolling. So 1 second here. So the combining and individual statements and schedules. So these are all of the funds that don't qualify as major that show on those basic financial statements. They all appear in that other non-major governmental funds column. So this is all the funds that don't qualify as major. All the statements here are shown combined, here's all the funds listed together. These are the non-major funds on one sheet. But then we do go into individual fund statements that obviously disclose original adjusted budget as well as actual results and any changes, and how the town performed against their budget, etc. One of the key pieces I did want to highlight that's new this year, and I'm sure town council is well aware of this because of the ordinance that was passed last year, are impact fee funds. So this is 6 new funds that appeared in the CAFR this year that were not there in 2018 or other years. The town passed an ordinance in 2019 that essentially allows the town to collect certain impact fees on permits issued by the town. And based off of what that fee is collected for, it's restricted for a given purpose. And so you can see here, Parks and Rec impact fee, transportation, public works, police facility, courts facility, general government facility, et cetera. And so that financial information regarding these new funds highlighted here about what the funds are for and what type of information that they track. And then you'll also see them presented in the non-governmental fund balance sheet on this page here. And you can see essentially we have cash collected, their proportionate share of the pooled cash interest earnings, interest receivable. And then you'll see here, it's tough to disclose the way we have to present these schedules, but fund balance, it's restricted for that given purpose. And so all the fees that are collected by and recorded within these funds are restricted for use for that given purpose of that impact fee special revenue fund. So that's one of the key pieces that's new this year that I definitely wanted to highlight as we go through some of this information. And all these schedules are disclosed here in the back of the CAFR. Sorry, make sure I can see my scroll bar. And then the final piece that I think is always unique and useful, and this information, this statistical section, is not actually subject to auditing standards. Within our opinion, our focus is to give an opinion on the basic statements, which includes the government-wide, all the major opinion units, and the notes of the financial statements as well, and required supplementary information. So the statistical section, which you'll see at the back of the CAFR, does include some really key information about financial trends, revenue capacity, debt capacity, as well as demographic and economic information. And as far as users are concerned, it's got a ton of unique information. I think it paints a really good picture of the financial activity of the town. Obviously, sales tax is a huge driver for the town of Parker from a revenue standpoint. And what's great about the tables in the statistical section is that it's a 10-year look back. And so as a reader, you can look at, economic and demographic changes, town population over a certain time. And then you can flip to a revenue table and see that as population has grown and there's been more retail units, that sales tax has come up. And so I think it does paint a pretty useful picture, and I encourage everybody to take a look because it does paint that 10-year picture of financial activity for the town. Outside of that, really no major changes in activity. Capital asset activity hasn't been as large as it has in 2017, 2018, or even 2016. A lot of those large projects have cycled down. There still always is some, construction in progress or capital activity like that. But I think the two unique pieces this year were, the debt refunding, which, the town has gone through before, as well as the addition of those impact fee funds. And that's really the two new pieces that were introduced to the CAFR this year. So I'll open it up for questions, but those are some of the key pieces that I wanted to highlight. But obviously, clean opinion, always happy to be able to issue that. It just attests to the hard work that the finance department, cultural department, public works department, and all the individuals that we work with throughout the audit put into having clean, concise financial information. So we appreciate the efforts from town management as well as town council.
Wonderful. Kevin, thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions for Kevin? John?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just echo what Kevin indicated. I think the clean report is a testament to our staff, Mary Lou, Rhonda, and the rest of the team. Mr. Kimball, my thing is, a clean opinion is fantastic. I'm a continuous improvement guy, and I like to look ahead. So is there anything that we need to kind of take a look at as an organization to kind of get better? And are there any legislative or rules changing which would require a great undertaking for our finance department? Thank you.
I appreciate the question. Obviously, the impact of COVID-19 is disclosed within the financial statements. And, really, obviously, with retail centers being closed, I'm sure that you, council, as well as management, have been working to understand the impact to sales tax and other revenue streams that affect the entity. And, I think municipalities, state, local governments, all across the state and the nation are working through that. But as far as, unique things that are a large undertaking, we don't see anything, no major control issues where the town has to go back and rewrite the wheel or reinvent the wheel. If we did, those would have been disclosed as, findings of significant deficiency, for example. And we do not have any of those to report for fiscal year 2019. You brought up looking forward, and I'm sure you guys have, at the beginning of the meeting, you guys referenced, some of the COVID-19 impact and working with the county, obviously, on those relief funds that are passed through a county, potentially to the town of Parker, and working through those funds. But, I think like anything else, just understanding the impact, the amount of funds that the town receives, how you have to track them for eligibility and compliance with the pass-through from Douglas County, if that's the case, for example. Those would be unique things that COVID-19 has, I think, given all of us a challenge for. But from a operational control perspective, we do, as a part of our work under governmental auditing standards, we are required to review internal controls and their impact to the financial balances and the statements that we give our opinion on. So we do test controls, and we don't have any control deficiencies that were significant enough to report as a finding. Each year, we work with management, discuss some internal controls. If we see any recommendations, management always, bounces things back and forth off of us, but nothing major that would be a large undertaking for the town. I hope that answers your question, Councilman.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Renee, did you have any questions?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation.
Go Rockies.
Absolutely appreciate the opportunity to come in.
We've also been noticing your Atlanta Braves thing in the back, and I share the sentiment of others in the room. Go Rockies.
Go Rockies.
I appreciate it.
Go wash your hands
At least
now.
baseball's back on. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Next up on our agenda now is, consent agenda. Our consent agenda items are considered to be routine, will be enacted with one motion and one vote, unless a council member asks to have something removed for further discussion. Ordinances on the consent agenda are for introduction only and will not be removed. So council, in front of you, you have consent agenda items 6A through 6F.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items 6A through 6F, please.
Second?
Second from Renee.
We have a motion from Josh and a second from Renee. Council, in just a sec, you're going to have your voting box pop up and you're going to vote. Motion passes unanimously, and it looks like Renee Williams is on there twice. So, vote early, vote
Why does she
often.
need to vote twice?
I promise I only voted once.
Okay. All right, I'm sure we'll get that worked out here. Let's go ahead and move on to the next item, which is 7. This is our public hearings. In front of you all tonight, I'm going to go ahead and read all 3 of these in, and Matt, I know you're going to give one presentation, but there are 3 different motions. It's your public hearing. 7A is First Amendment to Tax and Fee Assistance Program for Agreement for Dakota Tavern, LLC. 7B is the First Amendment to the Tax and Fee Assistance Program Agreement for Main Street Pier, LLC. And 7C is Second Amendment to Tax and Fee Assistance Program Agreement for Parker Keystone. Matt,
Thank you, Mr.
rock and
Mayor.
roll.
Members of the council, tonight I have the three items before you, all of which represent amendments to TAP agreements that the town has with businesses within the town, namely the Dakota Tavern, that's hard to say, the Main Street Pier LLC, or the Laszlo Hotel as we know it, and the Parker Keystone Project, which is the development on the southeastern corner of Parker and Lincoln Roads. The material facts for all 3 are the same. We'll have to enact them separately, but they all look the same. They are all the TAP agreements within the town that are longer than 1 year in duration, as these are structured as a series of renewable 1-year agreements subject to annual appropriations of funds by the then current council. In May of this year, council adopted a budget amendment that included a number of measures meant to reduce cash outlays during the rest of 2020. One of those measures was to remove the appropriations made for the rebate of sales taxes paid as part of the tax and fee assistance program agreements that are before you tonight. Finally, in an effort to seek a mutually agreeable outcome with the TAP participants, council authorized staff to extend each affected agreement by 1 additional 1-year term. So the purpose of these 3 amendments then that we have before us this evening is to replace the 2020 term in each agreement with an additional 1-year term due to the town's decision not to appropriate funds for 2020. Staff recommends the approval of each of these amendments, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have before we begin, just one after the other.
Wonderful. Council, do you have any questions?
Just a point of clarity, the recommended motion, I believe, is dated. We're looking for a motion to approve, not as part of consent agenda, correct? Correct. Just a motion to approve?
Correct. Okay. Renee, did you have any questions?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Super. So the First Amendment to the Tax and Fee Assistance Program Agreement for Dakota Tavern, LLC.
A move to approve?
Second?
Point of clarification, this is a public hearing, so we have to open up for public hearing.
Thank you very
comment.
much.
Oh, number 7.
Look
it
at you
says
guys
public hearing.
jumping on there super fast. Let's go ahead and open it up for public comment at 7:33 p.m. if there's anyone in attendance wishing to comment on these 3 items. Danette, is there anyone? I looked out, I did the old-fashioned look around the room, and there's no one sitting in the seats, so I...
For the Zoom callers, if you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand in Zoom. Laura Hefta.
Okay, Laura, you've got a 3-minute time limit. You go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please, and at 3 minutes, I will let you know.
Hello?
Yep, go ahead and state your name and address, Laura.
Okay. My name is Laura Hefta, and I live at 18236 Shadberry Lane, Parker, Colorado, 80134. Okay. And I'm just curious if you could just explain that tax amendment just a little bit more, the effect it has. If you could speak a little slower on that, so I could understand that just a little bit better. Thank you very much, Council and Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we answer that, is there anyone else on for public comment?
No, no one else.
No one else. All right, we're going to go ahead and close public comment at 7:35 p.m. Matt, I'll throw this out there, and you can kind of fill in the blanks if I skip over anything, since I've kind of done that a little bit tonight. So Laura and anyone else watching, the tax and fee assistance programs will vary depending on what council approves, but in a basic sense, what these are incentive programs for businesses that receive a tax rebate back from the town. So the business collects 100% of the tax, the sales tax, and then and submits it to the town. And as long as they're in good standing and following the language of the agreement, then some percentage of that sales tax is given back to the business for the incentive program that it was established for. So let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say it's 50% for 3 years or 4 years. And there's always a dollar amount cap and there's always a time cap. So let's say it's 50% sales tax rebate for 3 years with a maximum of $20,000 rebated, whichever comes first. So if the business collects enough sales tax in year one that they hit that $20,000 cap, then the agreement ends and all the sales tax after that stays with the town. If they don't, if business isn't as good as they projected and they get to the time frame, even if they haven't collected the same amount or enough to hit the cap, the agreement ends. What we have in front of us today is that because of the economic downturn and because the businesses would be collecting less sales tax, what this amendment would do is instead of the collections happening this year, an extra year is added on to their agreement, and no rebate is done in this year when sales tax is low. So it benefits the business and it benefits the town so that we can still capture and use 100% of the sales tax that was brought in. Matt, was that a fair assessment?
Spot on.
Spot on. I could go sit in your role, right? All right. So, Josh.
If I could, I'd like to amend my motion.
Okay.
To make for clarity. I move to approve First Amendment to the Tax and Fee Assistance Program for agreement for Dakota Tavern LLC.
Okay. Got a motion from Josh.
Second.
We have a motion from Josh and we have a second from Debbie. Council, please vote when your window pops up. That's fine.
Well,
Motion passes unanimously, and we've got item 7B.
I would like to make a motion to approve the First Amendment of the TAP agreement for Main Street Pier.
second.
We have a motion from John. Jeff, was that you? No, was that Josh? The second.
I don't know why I'm on the
I thought I heard a sound over
It
here.
was me.
Debbie, all right, we got a motion from John, and we have a second from Debbie. Council, please vote. I heard a voice from over on this side.
It was
I
Josh.
know I
Josh
did.
raised his hand.
All right. I'm not going psycho, or else you guys are like totally gaslighting me here. It's the ghost of Josh Martin.
Why can't I get this bigger?
Motion passes unanimously, and now 7C.
Somebody.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve second agreement to the Tax and Fee Assistance Program for Parker Keystone, please.
Second.
We have a motion from Josh and a clear second from Debbie. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item up is item 8. These are ordinances. We have ordinance number 5.06.42.1 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance to amend section 7.03.020 of the Parker Municipal Code concerning restrictions on use of motorized vehicles and recreational vehicles. Kristen, you will take us on the journey through the motorized vehicle golf cart ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This ordinance is a companion ordinance to a Resolution 20-39, which was approved at the last council meeting, and that resolution authorized the use of golf cars and off-highway vehicles on certain public property within the town of Parker. The proposed ordinance is to amend Chapter 7.3 to allow the use of motor vehicles and recreational vehicles on public property, parks, trails, and sidewalks within the town if it's authorized by town council resolutions such as the one adopted at the last meeting. Previously, this was only allowed on public property as part of a community event process. It also expands the exception for public employees or agents that are maintaining, repairing, or patrolling their properties to include those agents and employees of special metropolitan districts and homeowner or business owner associations. And finally, subsection 6 of that chapter provided that the mayor may issue permits, and this has been revised to provide that the town administrator or her designee will issue those permits.
Dang it. I know. One thing I was looking forward to in 8 years is issuing a golf cart permit. Now I can't. Just teasing. Council, do you have any questions? Oh, Renee, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and open it up for public comment at 7:41 p.m. If there's anyone on the Zoom call, to go ahead and use your raise your hand feature if you have public comment.
There are no public comments.
Okay, we're going to close public comment at 7:41 p.m. and I'd entertain further discussion or a motion, please.
I move to approve ordinance number 5.06.42.1 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Josh and we have a second by Debbie. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. With no further business before Town Council, we will adjourn at 7:41 p.m. But please sit tight.